ChrisTFer, now we will talk about the London Spitfire because a new adventure begins for you. So you were released by Philly Fusion, which is going on a full Korean project, and you were able very quickly to find another project. At this time, and for the first time for you in OWL, you will be the head coach, London Spitfire head coach. Was it a strong desire for you to become head coach, to lead a project?
Yes, it's always been something I've had in the back of my mind. I thought about making the jump the season before, but I felt like I've seen a lot of people in Overwatch and just in sports in general who take the jump too soon, and then once what happens is you do a bad job as a head coach, you get fired and then there's no opportunity for you to get back into the league. So I thought, I've got another season. I'm going to get to work with 9K, who's like as good. Everybody said he was like a brilliant coach. I thought it makes sense ultimately to go learn from him for another year and then see what happens and see where the outlook is at the end of it. London has always been a team that I've kind of. It's funny, you can ask any of the Fusion guys. I've said since season 2, I'm going to be London head coach next year. That's what I would always say. Even when they were full Korean, I said, no, they're going to kick the Koreans and I'm going to be head coach. Obviously, the fact I'm British and it's London is the main reason behind that. I'm quite proud in that aspect to be the head coach of the only English Overwatch League team. That's like, it is something that matters to me. And I think that it's good to go from a team, like as an assistant coach, one of like the quote unquote like teams that is competing to win the league, to then drop down to a team that has like different goals and different budget and different. I think it's nice to make a step up in terms of the position, but then to take like a step down in terms of like the kind of level of the team that you're coaching, if you understand what I'm saying. So I think it all kind of came together perfectly. I think that if I'd waited another year, then you're just going to miss that opportunity and then you're likely to be assistant coach forever. So now is the time, and I think that we've done a good job in the off season. I have a roster that I'm very confident with, and I'm just excited to get going.
Yeah, so it was the right time and the right team to do it. What did you have to learn before make the transition? I mean, from assistant coach to head coach.
Well, I haven't necessarily learned anything yet. Obviously, like doing the trial process, and I had to do a lot of talking to players to convince them to join London, which is never something that I'd had to do before. I'm aware that as a head coach, a lot of the disciplining and the talking to players and the emotional leadership wasn't something that was in my job description as an assistant coach. So that's the aspect that I'm going to have to improve on. Across last season on Philly and season before, I've done a lot of coaching in terms of the Overwatch, where I've been the guy that's like structured the entire team for certain maps or certain metas. So in terms of the coaching, I'm confident I know what to do unless Overwatch 2 changes everything. It's the other side, like the leadership side, the emotional leadership side. That's what I'm going to have to step up and do, because ultimately that is the head coach's decision. I probably have to be less friends with the players, and I have to make that separation a bit more. I'm going to have to be the bad guy now. What was good about working for both 9K and KDG was I could always be the good guy, and then he plays the bad guy. And I didn't necessarily have to fracture my relationships with players, but that's going to have to change now. I've thought about it a lot. I know what I have to focus on, but I think a lot of it I won't start until I start.
So London Spitfire remains on a very tough season, very difficult one, with only one victory in the last game of the season against Vancouver. I feel like this year, London has given you the means, not the same than Philly Fusion, but means to do better. You will have a gaming house, especially in LA, I think.
Yes, that's right. At least that's what we're hoping for. In terms of the budget, I don't think it's too different to last year, maybe a little bit higher, but the fact that we're able to be in the same house and stuff will make it a massive difference. I think Paris are going to get that same luxury too, maybe. So I knew that I wasn't going to be able to offer players 500k to join London when I took the job, but I think that both Jack and Nuki were very, very good to me when I said, can I get a little bit more for this player, a little bit more for this? They were very accommodating, and I ended up with basically the roster that I wanted from day one, near enough. So it worked out quite nicely.
And what would be a successful season for you? It's
a really good question. It's one that me and the players, we have to I think one of the problems with American sports is everybody just aims to win, right? But that's so naive. We can, if you think about football and as example, in the English Premier League, there's maybe 6 or 7 teams every season whose only goal is to survive, is to not get relegated, right? So they're saying, we don't care what Manchester City, Manchester United do. All we want to do is beat the teams around us at the bottom. And if we cannot get relegated, that's a successful season. And we have to look at that the same in London. Obviously, there's no way to get relegated, but we have to look at the budget and what the means we have. Like Paris, I think we probably have more money than Paris. I think that's fair to say. I think Florida is similar to us. Maybe they spent a little bit more, but I think maybe like between 1 and 1.5 times more. But then after those 2 teams, you start to look at teams like Vancouver. I think, and maybe, I don't know if I get in trouble for saying stuff like this, but I think that salaries and at least what teams spend should be public, because then it makes teams like us, you can't just trash on us if we lost to a team that spent 4 times as much money. And I think with Vancouver, people might not notice, but they've spent a lot of money this year, really. They're in a situation where their roster budget, I think, is probably 4 times higher than ours. And then you get to all of these teams like the Shock, Toronto, Dallas, and Washington. These are probably looking to spend like 5 or 6 or 7 times, even more money on their roster than we do. So we have to understand that. If you've ever watched the movie Moneyball, we aren't playing a fair game. The game is unfair, right? So for me, my minimum expectation of what could be considered a successful season is to at least beat the teams who are in the same boat as us, right? So Paris and Florida, probably, they're the teams who have a similar budget, who have a similar situation to us. If we can finish ahead of both of those, then that's maybe the bare minimum of what we can say, okay, then we've had a good season. Then we need to start taking a few games off of the teams like Vancouver, like Boston, who, although have much bigger budgets than us, those games are winnable. You know, there's always a few teams every season who, despite having a big budget drop in level, you know, like they're not as good as they should be. And obviously we need to be the type of team that goes to those teams and we start to give them really tough matches and we start to take games off those teams. And then it would be great to be able to take 1 or 2 wins off the big boys by the end of the season. But I'm certainly not going to say to the players, if we don't make playoffs, if we don't win the league, it's been an unsuccessful season. More than that, I want us to have a season where at least at the end of it, we're still together as a team. I don't want us to have one of these seasons where everybody hates each other, everyone wants off. I want us to at least have been a team throughout the whole season. And ultimately, we do our best. I want every player to be better than they were when they started the season. And if that means some players then go and join other teams because they've done well, then I'm happy with that. You know, that means I've done my job as a coach and as a coaching staff. I think that's going to be one of the most important things about my first few days or whatever with the team is meeting setting the expectations, so that we're not in a situation where if we play Toronto then we lose, and we play Shock and we lose, then we play Dallas and we lose, where we get really hard on ourselves, because honestly we're not meant to beat those teams. That's it's not a good thing to say as a coach, but it's the truth, right? Like those are teams who have invested so much money to win the league. That's not us.
So you arrive quickly on the 2022 London Spitfire project from October the 12th. It has been official. It means that you were able to have your say on all the important decisions, who we keep, who we let go, who we recruit.
Yes, yeah, pretty much. They all maybe made decisions about some players who stayed, or who we didn't take their +1s. But almost everything was in line of what I wanted anyway. Like obviously, I really wanted to keep Shax and Sparker, and then being able to get Haddy back was something that became clear to me that we needed to do too. So I got as much of say as I could hope for in the team. So there's, if the roster's bad in it, then it's on me and on no one else.
And so London Spitfire parted ways with 5 players: Blasé, Hybrid, Molfik, Kelex, and Ripa. And then there is one player who got a special treatment, Adi, released first and then back after trials. Can you explain to us? Yeah,
so I wasn't sure. I think a lot of people's opinion about Haddy was that he didn't have a good season. He wasn't necessarily a good player. And obviously, with me being in the Korean region, like I didn't necessarily watch many London games, at least not enough to give like a good opinion about people. So I wasn't sure about Haddy either. And then once I started to speak to the coaches and then also a lot of the players like Shax and Sparky who stayed, it became very clear to everyone that they thought Haddy was a very good player and he should stay. then once you talk to a few other players around the European region that maybe have seen him in ranked or whatever, then they're in a situation where they say, yeah, he's good too. And then we did the trial process, and almost immediately it was clear to me that Hadi was a level above all of the other tanks that we were trialing. His hero pool, especially for a European player, is really good. He can play all of the main tanks. His communication is very good. I've had many conversations with him since we've started, and I'm convinced that everything that happened last year, it's over, and I think that we have ourselves a really, really good main tank. And I think that it was the best choice easily for us.
And he has the OWL attitude as well.
Well, that's it. That we have if you look at our roster, we have a few maybe Poko and Shax who you can call veterans now, who have been in the league since maybe season 2. I think, was it season 2 or 3 when Shax came? But either way, they've been around for long. And then all of the guys from London last year who have at least been in the league for 1 year, so they know what to expect now. And then on top of that, we have a few rookies. So we have the perfect balance. I think we have the experience and we have the rookies, which is, I think teams need both to be successful, really.
I have to ask you the question about the main tank position. Has BenBest been in your thinking at the time?
So I saw a few of the tweets from people. So I regret not being able to give everybody a fair trial, because I want London in the future to be a team where European players who are at the top feel like they have an opportunity to trial for. I want us to be a team where if you're a European player that's not in the league, you want to join London for your first season. And then if you excel, you go somewhere else maybe. That's a really important goal of mine. But people have to understand that to recruit players this season was very difficult because nobody wanted to play for London after last season, right? So what my strategy was I had to show people who wanted to trial for us that we're different this time. So I kept trials extremely close, maybe 2 or 3 players for each position. And what that did, I even trialed players who I knew would never join London because they were going to go to one of the top teams. But I asked them to trial just so they're in our Discord. And what this did was give the players that I thought were achievable a mentality shift. They thought, oh, maybe London is different this time, you know? Look at the options for main tank. If we get any of those 2 or 3, it's good. Oh, both the off tanks are good. I think sometimes these teams who trial everybody under the sun, you join the Discord and you think, wow, there's some really, really bad players in here. I can't believe it. But our Discord was short, but it was only really established or really good players. So all of the players that were joining that maybe weren't originally sure about joining London saw the people we were interested in and thought, wow, okay, this is a pretty good team, actually. They have some pretty good players. And then we were able to do that. And then we were able to leverage, say, well, if you want to join us, he loves to play with you, you love to play with him, we can do it both. And we ended up having a situation where we signed 3 or 4 players on the same day because they were conditionally happy to play with each other, if that makes sense. My goal for London beyond this season is to transform the image a little bit. And then what I'm hoping for in the next season or the season after, I can run trials with more people, because I'm not worried about people not wanting to join us. But one thing I really felt like is if I invited everybody into the Discord, that it would put people off so that they would take offers from other teams. Because maybe people don't know it, but a lot of the players we signed did have offers from other teams too. Some of them for higher money that we had to try and convince to come join us. So that's why people like J. Cora, like BenBest, like Hell feel like they didn't get a real chance. And I can say I'm sorry for that. But I can also say, hand on heart, that I think Hadi is the best main tank out there, and I think that we made the right choice, regardless if they'd had more time to trial or not.
London, as you said, will be the only full EU players project for 2022. Is it a real choice?
We had the option to get Korean players. We were very close to signing 1 Korean player. But I made the decision at the end that we wanted to go with Admiral. I think that once you have a majority European team, it makes more sense to just keep it, because I think a lot of the culture and the team side of it will be better. I think Philly did mixed teams better than any team in the league. Really, I think better than any team in the league. But we still had numerous problems of managing it. I think that even Shock have won. I think they've had problems managing the Korean Western mix. I think every team that's ever gone hybrid has found those troubles. I think it's just very difficult when the cultures and the languages are so different. So I didn't go into the season only thinking about full European, but when we start to get the first pieces we want, I think it made sense from a team cohesion and a culture point of view to go European.
And this EU project, there is one French player, and it's Poko. You already know him very well. How does he feel after his year without playing? What did you say to convince him to join the London Spitfire?
Well, I thought originally Poko was going to be one of those players that we invited to the Discord, but was inevitably going to get picked up by one of the best teams. Poko is obviously in a very unfortunate situation with what happened to him last year. He was in a situation where he was maybe a week away from flying, and then borders got shut and everything got locked down for him. I think he's a very, very underrated player. I think sometimes when people see someone with a personality in a stream like him, they assume that the reason he was on Philly was for that. But as a player, he's a genuinely elite off-tanker. Across season 3, when he played, he was benching Fury for big parts of the season off merit and off nothing else. KDG loved working with Poko. 9K only wanted to work with Poko. So a lot of these like elite head coaches really rate him. I think the fact that he joined us, I'm obviously extremely pleased about, because I think one thing other teams decided to do was they would always try and get like the younger players. I think teams like really like to get young talent because they think that it's going to be better. But I'm confident in Poko. I have like an extremely elite off tank, who, like I said before, is nothing, works extremely hard, is extremely professional, is a good example. This year, I'll probably need him to be more of a leader than he was on Philly. I think that's good. That's going to be one of the things I have to talk to him about, because obviously he's the most experienced, like the biggest name. Like it's up to him to start to be a captain in some ways. But I couldn't be happier to keep working with Poko. Hopefully, he says the same.
Yeah, he did say the same. As you said, he didn't quite have the opportunities he hoped for, but he had 2 offers. He had Paris Eternal and London Spitfire, and he has chosen London. I felt that he seems more confident, more secure with London Spitfire, and especially you, because he said a lot of positive things about your personality and your work in his last interview with Iska.
Yeah, I saw bits of it. A lot of I didn't do too much individual coaching across the years, but a lot of it ended up being with Poko. There's obviously times in season 3 where he was the only 1 or 2 Western players that was playing, so it made sense for me to work with him. So I probably coached him more than any player in the world. And our relationship's always been good. Even if I say, let's do this, and he disagrees with it, he very much has the attitude of, I'll try it, I'll do my best, and if it doesn't work, we'll change it, you know? Sometimes when you coach players and you say, well, in this situation, I want you to try and do this. No, I don't think that's good, so I won't do it. But with Poko, he says, no, I don't think that's good, but if you want me to do it, I'll try it, and we'll see what happens. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, but he's always willing to give me the benefit of the doubt to try my things. So yeah, really only good things to say about Poko, really.
There is another French player we would have seen with London Spitfire. It's FDGod. Why did you prefer Admiral for the second support player?
Yes, so we did trial FDGod a little bit. I think ultimately one of the decisions I made was I feel like in 5v5 in my head, and this is ultimately the problem we have is we're gambling. Every coach here is gambling. We don't know. But I feel like with 1 tank instead of 2 in 5v5, Lucio, unless they change him rapidly, has to be a more difficult hero to play, right? Like Lucio historically has always excelled when there's more tanks as possible when you want to play together. In 5v5 with only 1 tank, I think that Lucio isn't as important. So when I was making my decision about the main support or whether or not to get a second flex support, I was putting a lot of weight into their Mercy, their Brig, in their BAP, and I felt like Admiral with his Lucio 2 was pretty good across all heroes, whereas FDGod's Lucio was insane. Even in trials, I was amazed by how good it was. But I felt like on the other heroes, maybe he didn't perform at the same level that I'd seen from other people. And that was ultimately why I made the decision. It's fair to say I didn't give him as much time as I would have wanted. So he's another one who can maybe feel like he was unjustly treated by me. But I had to make decisions I had to make for reasons I've already explained, and I don't necessarily regret any of them.
And what about the Admiral mindset as well? I mean, I've heard from Helv and from people who worked with him that he's very good as well on this part. He's a really good shot caller as well.
Yeah. One of the first things I did was I spoke to the 2 coaches on British Hurricane. And I said to them, right, be honest with me. If you were in my position, which players would you sign up without trial? And for both of them, Admiral was at the top of their list. I think that one of the things that was a deciding factor was also Admiral plays a lot of ranked. He's consistently across all of the seasons been towards the top. Everybody that worked with him on Hurricane said he was an absolute professional. His performances and scrums are very consistent. His hero pool was very good. So I think for the final slot we were looking for, I think he ticked a lot of boxes for us.
So as you said, with Overwatch 2 coming next season, everyone is betting right now. We don't really know where we are going. What do you think about some teams who have decided for now to go on a double flex support and no main support?
I was close to making the same decision, so I really understand it. I think that one of the things, again, working with Alarm, it was funny in Season 3, when we put him on Brig, he was instantly better at Brig than Astra was, who was a main support who was meant to play it, because I think Brig has a lot of instincts that a flex, like the other flex support heroes need. So I think if you think that BAP, Mercy, and Brig are going to be the main three heroes, maybe you're just guessing, really. I think it's really reasonable to get a mechanically gifted flex support on it. I decided against it because I don't think it's impossible that Blizzard, I think they like Lucio as a hero, and I think Blizzard is a company that when they like a hero, they're going to try and keep it relevant. I don't think they'll be happy if Lucio is on 0% playtime. I feel like if I went for 2 flex supports, I can't get 3 supports like some teams can. If they were in a situation where they buffed Lucio and he was meta for a stage and we had 2 flex supports, it could be really, really difficult for us to get any wins. If we're in a situation where it's a BAP Zen meta for the full season, then those teams that gamble on 2 flex supports maybe will win out. But that's what it is at the end of the day, isn't it? It's just a gamble. And maybe I took the safer option. I didn't want to do anything too crazy because I felt like we had a really good core of players already. And I just needed someone that could fill the heroes that Provide doesn't necessarily want to play or can't play. And then that's it. I don't have any weak links in the team. I don't have any hero pool problems. And our success is only determined by how good we are as a team, how hard we work, and not by rolling the dice and hoping that it's a double flex support meta.
Yeah, and OWL is a really private club. I mean, whether you are a player or a coach, and even more so when you are European, it's tough to find a new team. After a great season with Paris, Get Amazed has not even done a trials. And I remember in an interview you said that he's your coach of the year.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? It's one of the things about coaching is you don't really know what anybody does. And the same way I spoke to you about our expectations for this year, I was aware that Paris was in a situation last year where they probably had the least budget out of any team in the league. And they overperformed. They beat out London, they beat out Vancouver, who were the teams in theory that were close to them, right? They were then able to take wins and go the distance against other teams. So I felt like every team in the league, they overperformed more than they should have. They exceeded their potential by the most. And because of that, I thought, well, Get Amazed is their head coach, so it makes the most sense. And then obviously, it seems like Get Amazed is in a horrible situation where his strengths and weaknesses seem to be very public. My strengths and weaknesses as a coach, people don't really know. But it's everybody knows that Get Amazed is amazing at the mental, the leadership side, the stuff that I need to improve on for the sake of argument. But he's very hands off when it comes to the in-game, the X's and O's, the strategy part of it. And I think especially within the league, players always respect a coach who knows Overwatch more than one that doesn't. Even if the coach is an amazing leader, is an amazing motivator, all of this, players love to work with coaches who understand the game the most. And I think ultimately, unless you were in a situation where you needed a head coach, it was probably very difficult for teams to find a spot for Get Amazed. I hope he keeps trying because obviously he's had nothing but success. I hope it doesn't put him off it. And maybe it's an opportunity where someone like him can take a year in contenders and say, my goal is to learn the side of the game which people think I'm weak at, right? So that when I come back into the league, I'm now a coach who has amazing motivation, amazing structure, amazing leadership, but I also understand the strategy a bit better too. And then we'll see.
Yeah, he's a hard worker, so he said already that if he has to work more to learn the game, he will do it. But I think that he's not just a mental coach. He knows what he's talking about, but the coaching level is so high, and team has choices, so...
That's what I meant about how he's in an unfortunate situation where his strengths are so public, and Reddit in the social media and public perception, it takes a point where I say, oh, he's more of a mental coach than the structure point, and they run with it to the point where, oh, Getamates can only do mental coaching, it's very frustrating when people, they take what is a nuanced point, or maybe he's 8 out of 10 on this and 4 out of 10 on that, and they take that and say, oh, he can only do this, he can only do this. And I think once that reputation got public, things got difficult for him. So I think he's very unfortunate in that aspect. Yeah. Also unfortunate in terms of the Paris budget situation, whereas I'm sure if they could have, they would have loved to have kept him on too.
Yeah, but I'm always surprised because Reddit is not the one who recruits the coach. So I'm always surprised when
it makes it shouldn't, but public perception stuff, it does make a difference, really.
All right. ChrisTFer, now a word about the team, your team, London Spitfire. You've recruited 4 players. You've already talked about Adi, Poko and Admiral, but what about the others, Backbone and Provide? What can you tell us about them?
Yeah, so Backbone was someone, actually he trialed when I did, you remember when I did the Fusion Uni stuff, when we were Visa, we did the contender stuff?
Yeah.
He was someone that we'd played against and we'd heard from, and people were like, yo, Backbone's really good. And Spieler, one of the assistant coaches, had worked with him in the past, so he was one of the people that we wanted to give a trial to first. His hero pool is very good, his mechanics are very good, but where he was really better than everybody else was he seems to have a lot of vocalness. Vocalness, that's terrible English. He was very vocal, he took a lot of leadership, which is I think something maybe we needed a few more characters like that who were leaders. I expected to be in a situation where in order to convince the people like Provide, like Poko, like Hadi, they would say, oh, you need to sign an established pair, but every single one of them said Backbone is really good. We really want to work with Backbone. So it was a no-brainer. We as coaches really liked him. I really like the fact he's young, he's hungry. Even in trials, he felt to be the one that was when we were losing, he was trying to push us up the most. He was the one that was no, we can win this, coming up with new ideas. I get the feeling he's going to be very, very easy to work with. So I think he might be the one that is going to surprise the most people next season. If we do a good job, I think that he has maybe a bigger upside than people know. And then the Provide signing obviously caused controversy. He's a player that a lot of teams wanted. I think he's been someone that has probably been Overwatch League level for, I guess, 2 or 3 years. And then various circumstances kept him from being in the league. We had to fight very hard to get him from other teams. He's a really, really good flex support. In a situation where European flex support is quite a difficult position to fill, and he's clearly a level above all of the other guys we're working with. In my experience with him as a person, I think he's very easy to work with. I think he's quite vocal. He's able to do a lot of things. His hero pool is a lot better than people give him credit for too. He's actually able to flex onto the main support heroes quite well too. He was actually the person that on day 1, every single coach said, if we can sign him without even trialing, we'll do it, because British Hurricane tried to sign him a long time ago too. He's been high on everyone's list. He was very good in trials. He seems to be very easy to work with. So I think he's going to be, one to watch.
And how did you convince them to join the London Spitfire? Because as you said, they were interested by other team, or other team were interested by them.
Well, this is why I don't regret the way that I trialed, right? Step 1 was getting them in the trial Discord, and then our Discord, the list of players looked stronger than other teams, right? Because when other teams invite everybody, they think, oh, wow, London has a really good chance. So that's how I got them in the door. And then the second thing we had to do was I couldn't just offer someone like Provide and say, join London Spitfire. He was only willing to join if we also were able to get Hadi, Backbone, Poko, something like that, right? So I then had to go, okay, Provide, I'll go talk to the others and I'll say to Backbone, okay, are you willing to join on the condition that he joins, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I had to do. people in Overwatch will only join for two reasons. One is for money and one is for the competitive roster. They're the only reasons players ever care about when it comes to choosing a new team. And because we kept trials close, I asked all of the players who were interested, and I said, who was the guys you thought was best? Every single one said Provide. Every single one said Haddy. And what that meant was I was in a position where I said, well, okay, I can promise you on the same day you sign, I will also sign Haddy. I will also sign Provide if you're willing to join. And then I was able to get like the dominoes, like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then once they were all ready, I could just knock them down, and we got the vast majority of our off-season done in the same 24-hour period.
So you had all the player you wanted to add, every one of them.
We were initially, like, our initial idea was with Massive for main support, but I think Vancouver like doubled our offer or something.
Okay.
They blew us out of the water, so that's why we then took a few more weeks just to trial for that last position. It was really close between Admiral and Master at the start. It was one of those situations where, like, yeah, we had to make a gut call just to get everybody going. We didn't really have time because a lot of these players already had offers from other teams and they were ready to go. So we couldn't necessarily trial for as long as we wanted to. So we were able to get the first 4 signs. Massa didn't want to come, but it didn't necessarily matter. And then we were able to convince Admiral to join us at the end.
So London Spitfire has 2 tanks, 2 supports, and 3 DPS. Do you still plan to recruit before the start of the season, or the roster is ready for 2022?
I'd be shocked if we make any recruitments. I'm more than happy with the roster. I think that teams, at least for this season, it's safer to get an off tank and a main tank. Maybe as Overwatch 2 comes out, teams can drop down to 1 tank if they feel confident. But yes, I'm more than happy with the roster size, the roster pieces, and that was I think that'll be it, really.
So ChrisTFer, right now you're still in South Korea. Are you going to spend the holidays there?
Yeah, I'm gonna stay. My visa is till February, the end of January, so I'm gonna stay here for as long as I can. Then I'll come back a little bit, England, get my American visa, and then travel out to LA.
And what's the next step for you? So you'll be back in England and then USA after that?
Yes, exactly. We need to be back in England to do various like visa stuff. Anyway, so yeah.
And how long do you plan to stay in England?
Just until London said we're ready to go. So if it's a month, if it's 2 months, however long it is. Go on.
Yeah, I just wanted to know when you would like to be in USA to start to practice for the next season.
But it depends ultimately when Overwatch 2, when we get access to some sort of client for it. I think that if there's a situation where if it comes out in March, I don't really see a point in moving us in January because it's going to be difficult to practice and stuff like that. So I think where possible, we'll try and time it so we're set up, we're ready to go. And then once we get that client for Overwatch 2, we can begin. But ultimately, I don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah, you still have no idea.
No, really.
And when would you like to start working on Overwatch 2? Because right now you can do anything. Well, I mean, are you starting to theory craft or?
I think theory crafting is really a waste of time. I think that you have no idea. Like there's going to be like 4 or 5 new heroes. Supposedly, there's going to be all these balance changes. Like predicting it is a waste of time. What my plan is to spend these next few months working with the players individually to increase their hero pool. So we're going to take each player and we're going to say, especially for the tanks, right? Because they need to learn the off tanks and the main tanks. So I'm going to say, okay, pick 1 or 2 heroes which you're not confident on right now. Let's go play some ranked. We'll do some one-on-one feedback. We'll try and get it so that you're confident in that hero when scrims start. I think if they give us Overwatch 2 months before the season, that's enough time for every team to be content. So that's the hope, but I don't know really.
What do you do right now?
Well, to be fair, one of the perks of being in the Overwatch League is that you get these off seasons to chill. When you're working, when you're in the season, there's nothing else in your life. You're 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. So they work you extremely hard, and the only way that they can justify working people that hard is that they also say, well, yeah, you're going to get X amount of months in the off season. So I think what I'm doing and what I think everybody should be doing is just trying to use the holiday for what it is. Like people, especially players, need to keep playing a little bit. But I think it's important from a mental and a personal point of view that you use this opportunity to build the other aspects of your life, or just to de-stress, so that you're in a position when the season starts, we can go again.
So ChrisTFer, I wanted to do an interview with you as a birthday present, but what do you want as a Christmas present? What will you ask to Santa?
I don't know, actually. I'm not good to buy for, but I get, actually, every year my mum gets me like the latest Manchester United t-shirt, so that's what I'll probably ask for Christmas again. I'd love some information about the release date, or some information about Overwatch 2 if Blizzard is listening and they want to help me out like that. But far from that, no, I don't need much at the moment.
ChrisTFer, thank you. Thank you very much for coming to make us want to follow more London Spitfire in 2022. With Poko in the team, of course, there will be support for you and your team on the French side. And I'm thinking in particular about one of them, for sure, number one London Spitfire fan in France, Maba. Maba, who is a French caster and who has always cheered for the team. So once again, ChrisTFer, a great season with London Spitfire and full of energy, because head coach in OWL, and everywhere it's a lot of work and a lot of pressure.
Yes, no, I agree. Thank you very much for having me. We'll do our best. We'll try and do the European and the French fans proud to the best of our ability. We'll do better than last year, that much I promise.